1, 2, ready, and...
Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. By and for school administrators, this podcast is intended to promote candid discussion and insight about our great profession. My name is Rick Sola, and as Communications Director for the Kansas Principals Association, I am the host, but I am certainly not the feature. Sit back, take a sip, and enjoy. This is Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Today, I am here with the principal of Mill Valley High School in the DeSoto School District, USD 232, Dr. Gail Holder. Welcome, Gail.
Well, thank you, Rick. I really appreciate the introduction. I thought you would do a little bit of a throwback to here is my sophomore English teacher, but I appreciate you keeping it above board and very professional.
Well, I was going to, but now
we can weave that in later.
Yeah, in the post production of this high production show that we've got going on here. But no,
Right.
Actually, I was going to say, first of all, congrats on the doctor, because we do have a history here as far as going all the way back to my sophomore year in high school at Olathe South, and you were my ELA teacher, and so just out of habit. Every time I see you, it's hi, Mrs. Holder, hi, Miss Holder, and so congrats on the doctorate. But then since then, I guess before we even get to that, because we could go into our history, but we kind of go back in both of our careers. But while we're on it, let's just start with a little bit of your road to the chair. You're sitting in Mill Valley. We were just talking before going live and how great it is and a really good start, but what led you here to where you're at today?
Such a great question. And so, I got my administrative license back in 2005 and 2006, something like that. I had gone through the Pitt State program to get an admin and, took the praxis, did all the things, but had really no desire to move into administration or that kind of leadership at that time. And so, to be honest, I let my 7 years or whatever the grace period is lapse and continue to coach and teach. But during that coaching and teaching time, I kind of started moving into some leadership or other roles within the district. And in 2016, when my daughter graduated from Olathe South, I also had Dr. Jessica Dane, who asked me to come with her over to district office and work in teaching and learning. And having had worked on getting my master's in curriculum and instruction, I felt like, and I'd always been somebody who very much focused on the academic success of students, although I know how important being involved in other activities and athletics is. So I moved over to that position in 2016, moved over to the district office, and I served there for 2 years and learned a lot about leadership. But to be totally honest, as much as I love planning professional development and believe so strongly in professional development for professionals, and especially in the area of education, I was really missing the sort of lasting impact of being inside of a building and working with teachers every day and seeing the impact on student learning and the use of data and what we were doing with that. So I asked if there would be an opportunity for me to move back to a building and go into administration. So in 2018, I was afforded the opportunity to go to Olathe East as an assistant principal. My roles there were curriculum and instruction and activities director, and loved that role, loved Olathe East. It was really fantastic. And then in January of 2020, one of my friends who I had taught with, who was an assistant principal here at Mill Valley, texted me and said, "Hey, our principal is retiring. Would you have any desire or would you like to even think about coming and interviewing for our principal position here at Mill Valley?" And kind of the rest is somewhat history. I accepted the position in February of 2020 here at Mill Valley, and of course we all know what happened in March of 2020. And so I spent from March 2020 all the way through the summer on Zoom calls with over 170 staff members here at Mill Valley. I had 15-minute Zooms with every teacher, secretary, custodian, para, just to have some time to get to know them, quote, face to face. I had planned to do it in person, but of course that got derailed by the pandemic. So just an incredible journey getting here, and I think starting my principalship in a space where I was also managing and trying to navigate a pandemic was something that I don't know that I really signed up for, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't have done it any differently. The stretch was big to come into a new space, a new district, new leadership, all the things, and then on top of everything else, navigating what we were doing as it relates to education in the pandemic as well. So I am so grateful and thankful. Every journey has been my favorite, I will say. So at this point in my life, I would say that this is my favorite stop in my education, in my professional journey, has been having the opportunity to lead this absolutely incredible community.
I may have missed the how to lead through a pandemic course when I went through my Baker degree.
I don't know. Maybe they, yeah.
But I had the similar trajectory. I started at the same time, and then it was the following school year. And you probably can't see it, but it's like a twitch started to develop as you were talking about it. What a crazy time. And going back a little bit, you referenced Olathe East and being an activity director. You had a life that was a big part. And for those who may not know, you're a legend around here when it comes to the dance team, drill team performance. So, and I bring that up specifically because I don't know if you at the time you thought about it as probably a leadership position, but an administrative position. But I've worked very closely with different dance team coaches, and it's a quasi administrative role. How did that prepare you for what you're doing now and kind of the road that you've had since then?
Oh, what a great question. I loved my work with dance team, and basically I would agree it is quasi administrative, if you will, because you're dealing with kind of a small community, and and I know you remember this, Rick, and you calling me Mrs. Holder, there's a part of me that has to stop when I call you Rick, because you were Ricky like that, and that's what I knew you as. But anyway, I had 80 girls. I had anywhere from 60 to 80 girls on dance team. So it's almost like a small school building that you were managing. So you had those girls, and then you had their parents and whatnot. But I think really the philosophy is the same, and I've carried it with me through my administrative career as well. Is you set the bar high, you set the expectations high, you lead with grace and humility, but with strength and conviction, and people will rise to the occasion. And I feel like I've done that, whether it was at Olathe East or here at Mill Valley. I've tried to lead just like I did, back when I was 24 years old, coming in as a first-year dance team director at Olathe South High School. Was, these are the expectations. This is what the guidelines are. But I'm gonna meet you where you are every day, and I'm gonna love you through it. But at the end of the day, if you don't do the right thing, then there's going to be a deeper conversation. And I feel like that's just, it doesn't matter if you're in a classroom or you're coaching a team that is recognized, whether it's statewide or nationally, or you're leading a school building. I really believe those same kinds of guidelines work for you. So
there's just so much overlap, and I mean there's hard decisions to make. There's personnel decisions. I know you had captains, you have placement on the floor, routines.
Look at you knowing all the things about the Golden Girls. Yes.
I am swimming in the deep end. You have no idea right now. Talking about dancing, but no, I know there's so much that goes with that. Then there's potential for parent concern or upset, or
You bet.
not to mention the building. You're using lots of building. You're coordinating between games and all sorts of things.
Yes.
And yeah, there's a direct correlation, I think, of what that was and what that's preparing for now. First of all, well, second, I guess a couple things. Well, you mentioned Ricky. Like, I have so many people like, that's a really hard. I was for people listeners of this show. I was Ricky for a long time. I dropped the Y when I was writing emails home to parents, and I felt weird having this serious email and then saying, from Ricky Sola. So I dropped the Y, but it doesn't bother me. I've been called way worse. It's my name. It doesn't bother me at all. But you also referenced Dr. Dane, Dr. Jessica Dane, and
Yes.
I mean, tell you what. So in 2016, you said you made that transition. You're working with her. I became principal, I think it was that year, 2016. That was my first year. And you talk about a dynamic duo, the two of you. And I mean that sincerely, because as a first year principal, I mean, you're just kind of the fire hose is on, but you guys were such a support for especially the professional development aspect of, just kind of getting my head wrapped around so many things as part of our school improvement plan, our goals, and both of you were just awesome and really kind of a lifesaver for me those first couple of years. So appreciate that. But
that's so kind of you to say. We were, when we came into that position, there was professional development, but Jessica and I think the same way. The intentionality behind professional development has to be there, and there has to be sort of this linear vertical articulation to what it is your real goal is. So I'm glad you say that, and it, whether you're saying it just for cool coffee or you're saying it in reality, we'll never know the difference. But I do appreciate that, and I've tried to carry that. I know we'll probably talk about that here in a second, but I've carried that same sort of work and transferred it over to what we do here at Mill Valley.
Yeah,
so.
no, I mean it sincerely, because I think we all have our strengths, and honestly, I value PD, and there's a lot that we do, but I lean on our learning services department, and especially as a first year, and you mentioned some of this earlier, but the confidence and the capability that both you and Jessica brought in, it was very comforting in many ways as a brand new principal, because things move really quick. But kind of to that point. The professional learning that you have for this year, we're recording this, it's August 19th, so it's early. We've started school, you got through your pre-service, but I'm sure you've got a little bit of a direction with PD, or an arc, if you will. Where do you see Mill Valley going this year? What's your points of emphasis?
Yeah, no, I do. And, I'm a big one in the summer where I kind of push reset, and I kind of slow everything down. And again, I try to be super intentional. I'm gonna start from our school improvement plan. When I first got here, I believe it or not, I spent a couple of years kind of not going full force. I tried to sit back, observe, see what's working and what's not working. And around year 3, I decided, when working with my department chairs collaboratively, I said, we've got to make this thing so easy, but so attainable. I need every single person to be able to articulate what are our building goals. So we made it as easy as ABC. And it's academics, it's belonging, and it's collaboration. That's it. And of course, underneath each one, there's strategies and there's things like that. But what I'm going to tell you is, you could ask any staff member in this building, what are your 3 building goals? And they could tell you, it might take them a minute, but they would go ABC: academics, belonging, collaboration. And we talk specifically this year under academics, our focus this year is on high quality instruction and high quality instructional materials. So there's this emphasis this year on instruction. So academics is the focus of everything we do. We talk about, at Starbucks, they don't sit around talking about tennis shoes. They talk about, they talk about coffee. They talk about customer service. They talk about all the things. And that's the work of our work. That's the business of our business. That's the talk of our talk, is we talk academics. And then when we talk about belonging, we're talking, belonging sounds sort of fluffy and like, okay, well, that just means that, we want kids to be involved in athletics, activities, a club. But really, I've worked with our staff to say, belonging is bigger than just saying, oh, all of our students are, have some sort of connection to a club or whatever. What belonging really means is that every single student that walks into every single classroom in this building feels like they belong in that classroom. They belong there, they can learn there, they're safe there. We've talked about the things you put on your walls, the things that you come out of your mouth. Is everything intentional? And we talk, we kind of joke between this rivalry between K-State and KU. Everybody kind of does that in Kansas. But, for some kids, they walk into a classroom that has K-State flags all over the wall, and they immediately go, I'm not safe here because my parents, bleed red. They're Jayhawk fans. And I'm using a light example, but I also want teachers to be very cognizant of being, I know these are sort of these terms that we're afraid of, but being really culturally responsive to what are you putting up in your classroom? If you don't see my entire office, but there's not one place where I have one degree up on my wall. I don't have my degrees hanging on the wall. I have a small little plate back here in the back of my office that says Dr. Gail Holder. I don't have it sitting out there because here's what I'm going to tell you, that based on the parents that I have coming into my office, the kids that they don't care about any of that. And not only that, are they really comfortable coming in where I've got all of my degrees and they haven't maybe gone to college, they haven't maybe gotten that extra degree? Are they immediately either on the defensive or feeling less than? This space is very common ground. There's not one person that hasn't been in my office that doesn't walk in and the first thing they say is, I love your office. I don't think it has anything to do with the decor. I think it has to do with when they come in my office, they immediately feel like I'm on a level playing field here. I'm not coming into a place where I feel intimidated because this person has this degree or sits in that chair. Because it means nothing to them, because what we're going to really talk about is how we can support their student in a space of not having running water at their house. And even in a place like Mill Valley, we have those moments, right? How are we going to get food for their student in the morning? And how am I going to, what are we going to do about their mental health? None of that matters. None of that stuff matters when we're really talking about the heart of what really makes this happen, which is students. So that's when I talk about belonging, that's what I'm talking about. And then collaboration, of course, we have spent quite a few years actually trying to get professional learning communities often running here in this district, and we finally 3 years ago pushed hard enough to get dedicated time on Wednesday morning, 45 minutes of a late start time where teachers can collaborate. And collaboration is all focused around our first two goals, which is academics and belonging. So regardless of those being three separate, they are all definitely intertwined and they definitely intersect. And so even though you talk about them being, these are our three goals, they really are all centered around the student and their success.
No, that's great. ABC, that breaks it down pretty simple, I imagine, for staff. And, you referenced your office, and of course I'm sitting over with right next to my head is my Chiefs flag.
You're good. No judgment.
So I'm looking at this, but that I find that interesting. And so, when someone comes into your office, like a student comes in and, what's in your office that kind of says you, like, oh, this is Miss Holder, Dr. Holder's office. And I mean, how do they they kind of see like what your passions are based on your office?
Okay, I love that you asked that question. First is the picture behind me. I've had this picture since I started in school leadership. I bought it when I went to Olathe East. It kind of, for me, every day it's the first thing I see when I walk in, and it sits behind me. I never really sit behind my desk when I'm talking to kids. I try to move around, but and it basically just says every day is new, and we get a fresh start every day. It's reflection and strength. Right? So yes, we want to constantly reflect, but we also want to do that reflection in the context of strength, and knowing that yes, being flexible, being able to change is really important, but there's always those firm foundations. I'll say that over here, I don't know if you can see it, but over here I have a table. And it's very interesting because the table is a collage of a variety of different things. It's got Mickey Mantle, it's got Charlie Chaplin, it's got Marilyn Monroe, it's got John F. Kennedy, and it's this montage of pictures, and it's a conversation table. I purchased it from a bed and breakfast when it went out of business. And so students come in, and this is where we sit when we talk, and it immediately, they always say, I love this table. And they love the table because there's something on that table that speaks to them. And I will always say, which one do you like the best? And every student will pick something different. I really like this. They have, astronauts. It's got everything on there. I have my sign over here on my wall that says, this is my happy place. And, students know when they walk in here, hey, I'm in a place that this person loves to be. In my corner, which you can't see, I can't turn the camera that far, but I've got a whole litany of plants. I've got greenery, I've got good, I call it good juju. I believe in the power of plants and exuding that really good oxygen. Up here on my bookshelf, it says, make every moment count. And I change that every year, and kids will notice that. Oh, you changed that this year. Oh, that's a new one this year. And I'll tell you why I have make every moment count when we get to that. But and I guess I'll finish my conversation, if you're okay with that, with my theme for the year, because my idea for the year. So we have our school improvement plan, but our theme for the year is, and I pick one every year, and I know you do too, because Reagan told me you pick a theme. But this year our theme is momentum.
Oh, nice. Oh, I like the logo.
Isn't it great?
Yeah,
I had our graphic design teacher design the logo, and then it says turning moments into momentum. And so unbeknownst to me, my science teacher told me on the last day of PD that MV, mass plus velocity, equals momentum. Who knew?
Very
It
cool.
was today years old. So what I do is I have our leadership core. I get these printed. I've done it every year for 5 years. I have 5 years worth of themes that I've done. The kids come in and they sign them for each individual teacher. Then the day before, and then they go around and put them outside on their doors. And so the teachers have these on their doors, and when a lot of them, when you go in their classroom, they have all the years that they've been here, they've kept them. So when I started it, I really didn't even think about, oh, well, this will be something that the teachers will keep. It has become a thing, and they can't wait to know what's the theme for the year, what's the next thing we're going to do. And then so this year, one of the other things we have is, along with momentum, we have cards that say thank you for being a Mill Valley moment maker. So these are ones that we give to staff and to kids, that if they have created a moment that has caused momentum to happen, then so admin has them, teachers have them, our counselors have them, so people are giving cards to each other when they recognize that somebody has done something to really spark what's a movement in some way. So we started out the year with a professional development around instructional strategies. I had a guest speaker come in. She also talked about belonging and teacher well-being. We did some choice sessions all around best practices for instruction. We had some sessions on data, how to create momentum with data, and then that will carry through as we go into our October PD as well.
That's awesome. You know, you're right. We have a theme every year. I have 5 years worth of themes where I'm at as well. What I don't have is all the nice signatures and the postings all over the building and that sort of thing. So I'm like, why didn't we do that? But we do have some posters, and I love I just love the tie-in to the Mill Valley and the momentum and mass and volume? Is that what you said?
Mass and velocity.
Mass and velocity.
Mass and velocity equals momentum.
And that's what I find, coming up with themes is sometimes things just kind of move into place. And next thing you know, you're boom, there it is. And so I love the momentum theme. I wish this is not a video podcast, but a really cool logo. It's August, and I always say it's easier to have a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy right now. How do you sustain momentum with your staff when it's like, October 28th, and we're grinding to Thanksgiving or whatever? What's something that might be intentional that you or your team does to really kind of like, we gotta keep going,
Okay, before I answer that question, might I say you are like a really good interviewer. You know what you do? You take something I said and then you craft it into another question. So I think you're amazing at this.
Well, you are amazing at this. You're very kind. I learned all of this in 1996 in my ELA class.
No, you didn't.
Olathe South. So.
I think, Rick, and you know this, and this isn't anything magical or bits of wisdom, but the words that our thoughts become our words become our actions, right? And so I talk to staff a lot about, in my weekly emails, about the power of positivity. What is the narrative around your attitude or your approach to the work right now? And if it's feeling like this, the best thing you can do is start speaking differently, right? It's not I'm tired. It's I can't wait to get this next lesson created so that I can see what happens from here. And unfortunately, it feels like you are constantly with your foot on the gas a little bit. You can tap the brakes every now and again. And I'm not talking about sort of toxic positivity. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying you need to have this, sort of Pollyanna, pie in the sky, everything is perfect. But I think what you also need to remember is that our students are coming to us every day, and this is the place that they feel the safest, where they belong. The work is so important. The learning that they're doing is the most important work that can absolutely happen in any profession. And so we are tasked with whether it's the unfortunate or with the responsibility of being those people, all right? And so if you can't go to a place where you can sort of fake it a little bit and get to that place, then let me help you, right? I think it also depends on what your leadership does. I feel like I'm out of my office a lot, especially during passing periods. I'm in classrooms. how's it going, and I'm constantly in that space of being really positive. So for building leaders, am I tired when I go home at night? You bet I am. But it's not because I've sat in my office all day. It's because not only is their responsibility to be their best self for their students, but it's my responsibility, I feel like, to be my best self and positive regardless of what's going on in my circle, so that I can pour into and feed, whether it's verbally, whether it's just by being there, whatever the case might be, our staff. I just feel like that's my responsibility to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And the whole lead by example piece, and I love the positive, and I talked a little bit at pre-service about, kind of a little bit to that sustaining momentum, but the year can be a little bit of a coaster sometimes, and we all feel it, and kind of being there also for each other. We have a really tight staff. If you're down, find those that are up, but I love the speak differently. think
Always.
differently, and that's a really good way to do it. So right before we actually hit record here, you mentioned your 5 years, and you spoke about this at the beginning, but you're 5 years in. What are the fruits of being 5 years in? Like, what's that like? That's really a good position. You were saying how great things are going, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the hard work you did out of COVID and you mentioned that balancing of like, okay, the first couple of years you're assessing, and then it's like, okay, let's go. So you're 5 years in. How does it feel right now in Mill Valley?
It just feels so great. I'm not just saying that. Like, it's not like I'm saying that, but I'm thinking something else. I've learned from some really, really great leaders who I've taken note. I'm a great observer, and I try to take all of those things in. I've adopted Todd Whitaker's, philosophy of, every teacher should have the expectation that every teacher should be like your best teacher. And I've told staff that, that's what we all desire to be. Who would you, in your mind right now, who's the best teacher in this building? And are you standing shoulder to shoulder with that person? And if you're not, what can you do to get there? And it doesn't matter who the teacher is that you consider to be the best teacher, but are you standing shoulder to shoulder? And what are those characteristics? And I think a little bit of this is feeling like, I don't want to say I've arrived. That's not it. I had these big hopes and dreams about what it would feel like to be a building principal, and I've got to be honest, it's not easy coming into a new community. This community didn't know me. It wasn't like I was taking over a high school in Olathe where I kind of had a little bit of street cred, or people kind of knew. No one knew me. And so there had been two gentlemen who had been principals at Mill Valley High School for 20 years, both of them 10 years each. And then here comes this gal who, comes in a little bit with, guns a-blazing, like, all right, let's go. And it was rough. I'm not going to lie to you. It was not, roses and whatnot. I withstood a lot of criticism. But unfortunately, what everybody didn't know is that was gas in my tank. And, that's not that I enjoy it, but I'm not going to let it beat me down, because I always kept in the forefront that, I know what it takes to create an environment that is best for kids. I know what that looks like, and I will not stop till I get there. And that's just kind of what I've kept in the forefront. I know one of the things you shared in your in the invite was this is what what it was going to look like, and one of the things was what was the best advice you got. And it's interesting because I'm combining it with watching The Kingdom, and I don't know if you've watched it on Netflix yet.
Not yet.
Have you?
Not yet.
Oh, Rick, you've got to watch it. Well, I've only watched the first 2 episodes. I'm kind of savoring it, but the second episode is fantastic, and it's titled "Don't Judge." So it's this beautiful moment where Andy Reid talks about that's his philosophy in working with players is, and I'm watching this on Sunday, this past Sunday, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's what we do. That's what we do as educators. That's what I try to do as a leader. And ultimately, the bottom line is, and I won't give it away, but it's I'm not judging anybody based on what they've done in the past. I take them where they are, I meet them where they are, and I move forward from there. And I thought about how often we do that. I put that in my newsletter this week, how often we do that. We are tasked in doing that. Regardless of what a student did yesterday in your class or said to you or whatever, you're tasked with the next day when they walk in. It's a new day, meet them where they are, and you move forward from there. And don't judge them and don't hold it against them. And I loved that. I loved that so much. So I feel like we've arrived in that place where staff understands that that's how we do business. We work with kids. We do what we have to do. We set the expectations high. We make sure that they have everything they need, and we move them forward and we get them across the stage. That is what our job is.
And it sounds like, too, you mentioned the safe place for kids, but the safe place for the staff members as well.
Absolutely.
5 years in, and, I was just sharing in a meeting the other day, conflict conflict occurs. We want to be positive and productive with conflict, as far as if we're having a BLT discussion or whatever, we need to be respectful, that sort of thing. But, we're going to have different opinions. That's what's going to make us sharp, and that's what's going to help us excel. And you mentioned the advice and just how rough it was early on. And I feel like I bet every principal who's gone through a first year, second year knows exactly what you're talking about. There may be somebody listening that is in that moment. They're in their first year, they're in their second year, and they just feel like, oh man, I'm just taking bullets left and right. And what advice would you give them?
I think one of I'm going to say advice, but I'm going to say like what I did. I think one of the things I've learned to do in this position is to step back and own what I own, and you're taking these bullets, or emails or phone calls or whatever the case. And then, okay, what is it that I have done and I own and I can control, and what is it that is beyond my control? Do they just not like me because I'm new, or because, whatever the reason is, or is it something that I've actually done? And I think once you start sort of focusing, bringing it from this huge problem to something really micro, okay, these are the things I can control. I need to do this, I need to be like that. Okay, that's fine. But there's other things that are outside of your control, and you've got to be able to compartmentalize that, and you have to be able to release it and say, you know what, I'm going to stay the course. I'm always going to have students at the forefront of every decision I make, every conversation I have, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Students are always going to be at the forefront. And if you can get to that place, I think that's where you just say, I've got to hang in there, because you will come through it on the other side. But it can be rough, and I'm telling you, I am a living example of how rough it was for the first probably 2 to 3 years. It was rough. Yeah. Not with my staff. The staff, like, literally was open arms from the beginning. They could see my heart, my passion, but it wasn't quite as easy with other things.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I'm sure the support that you receive from district leadership too is helpful, and that empowerment, like hang in there. And,
yeah.
You referenced, this is just a real quick, you referenced a newsletter. When do you send your newsletter out? What's your day of delivery for the newsletter, the weekly?
Didn't we talked about this, didn't we? I think we talked about it maybe at USA.
Yeah,
maybe just a little bit.
Okay. You could tell I've been bothered by this all summer.
Yes, you've just been like, when does she do it?
No, I changed my day this year. I changed my day.
What is your day now?
Well, I'm curious what your day is.
Well, I want to ask you first. I'm kidding. I'll end. What is your day?
Well, so my day was always, it was a terrible day. I'll admit that. It was always Sunday morning. It was always in preparation for the following week. This is my parent newsletter, and I have an automated email that would go out and a text. And it was always Sunday morning or Sunday noonish, in part because a lot of times I got information Friday and late Friday that I would want to include. And I just never felt prepared. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have it mostly ready, send it out Friday, or Sunday. I'm sending out Friday now, which is really, for me, getting me, I have to rush, and I don't feel as secure because I feel like I'm rushing through it. But when do you send yours out?
So, and I totally understand that, and I think probably you feeling like, or people are feeling like Sunday morning, now my whole Sunday is occupied with the words from the principal and whatever. So I have sent my my family email, my community email, I send it to both students and parents. I send it at 5 p.m. on Sunday.
5 p.m. Sunday, okay.
And then my staff email, I try to send by 4, because what I do is I prep the community email, and then I copy and paste that and put it into the staff email so they can see what I'm sending to the community. And I have an hour buffer so that I have a few people that wait, like they're on it. Like at 4 o'clock when that email sends, if I've got a correction, then I can go into the community email and correct it. So I've got staff that will sometimes say, hey, I think this date is wrong, or that, yep, you're right, boom. But the thing is, I don't require my staff to read the email on Sunday they can read it Monday, but I have not had one staff meeting, one faculty meeting in, this is 6 years. I don't have faculty meetings because I think probably in my career, I sat through a lot of faculty meetings that could have been an email. And so, but what I do tell my staff is, every bit of information that you will need for the week and the upcoming week and maybe looking ahead is all going to be in that Sunday email. And I don't want to ask people to have additional meetings. So I send mine on Sunday at 5. I'm going to tell you right now, if that email does not go out at 5, we just flipped over to a new platform and the connection was weird and wonky and people didn't get it until Monday. On Monday morning, parents were calling, where is the Sunday email at 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Wanting to know.
No, I remember it. We did talk about this because I was so intrigued by students receiving the general
Yes.
the general email. I really like that. No, that's great.
And they read it, and they read it. I'm telling you, they have got. I mean, I don't know how many of our freshmen do, but I'm telling you, our kids read that email. They want to know like what the learning schedule is. They want announcements. They want to see if their friends got a shout out in the congratulations section. And it's not Canva or whatever some more. I don't do any of that. It is literally an email. I do have a format, but it is literally an email and no fancy stuff at all.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for revisiting that conversation with me.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before we sign off here, and you've done a lot of this, and it sounds so great, and it's really cool to hear so much more about your community. But this is an opportunity for those in Mill Valley listening. Brag on them. What makes Mill Valley so great?
Oh gosh, before I came here, people would say to me, it's a fantasy land over there. It's utopia. It's this, that, and the other. I mean, there's nothing truer. We have this incredible parent community that is so incredibly generous and kind and supportive. Do anything for teachers. Do anything for their students. And then I've got this staff, I tell them I hire the best. That's what we do here. And I'd rather leave a position open and, I fill them and they fill me with, all of this trust and support that we need. I think our kids are fantastic. Our kids, they say please and thank you. They clean up the lunchroom. One of our speeches at graduation talked about the special place that Mill Valley is, and she gave an example of I held a door in a classroom, a couple weeks ago, and this has been at graduation, and every single student that walked out of the door said thank you to me for holding the door, and so we live in a space where kids, again, they know that you say please and thank you. You appreciate your building. You have these kinds of things in place that create a community of learners that you can really focus on the learning. You're not really worried about a lot of ancillary things. You are totally focused on student learning, and it is just an absolute joy and privilege to just be a part of that as building principal, for sure.
Well, very cool, and I love the example, and I love the door holding, and I've used the analogy of Quick Trip. I tend to go there too often, but it's like the Quick Trip culture. There's something about it's a gas station. And but when you go there, people hold doors for each other. You always are welcomed when you come in. It's a culture thing, and I love the culture that you've described there. It sounds really awesome.
You know what else is a good one? Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A, how can I serve? Or whatever they say. My pleasure.
My pleasure. Yep.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I mean, you're right. I mean, culture is everything. Culture is everything.
Yeah.
Trust is first. Than culture.
Yeah.
I trust culture. Yeah.
I really have enjoyed talking with you. I feel like we could talk for lots of other topics, but really appreciate your time and all the best to you on a great school year, and hopefully we'll run into each other again. I don't know if you'll be at KPA in November or USA again, but or any other local deal, because we're not too far from each other, but
right.
But just thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope there's a lot of listeners to this, because there's so many great things that you shared that's going on, and that people, I think, can steal for their own buildings. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Rick. I just want you to know I'm so proud of you. I just want you to know I'm proud of you, Rick. I mean it. I am very proud of you. You yourself are very incredible, and you've made quite a name for yourself. So I couldn't be more proud of you.
You're very, very kind, and I thank you for that. That's very, very nice. But I appreciate it, and thanks again. And we'll see you around at some point.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Check the notes section for more information on this episode and to learn more about the KPA and its mission to develop and support all principals through optimized learning, collaborative leadership, networking, and service. Be sure to check back in for our next episode and spread the word about cool coffee with Kansas Principals. Catch you next time.